Let's start with the obvious. This isn't Black and White, the famous God game from 2002, which was revolutionary on so many levels that God games have basically stagnated since its release. This is a solo indie developer's project titled Adhain, but it's very much inspired by Black and White's gameplay, and this developer would like it to become a spiritual successor to Black and White. Now let's take a look together at its gameplay, and I will share with you info and plans this indie developer going under the name Little Wormhole told me about. Obviously, his plan is to provide a game for all of us Black and White fans, as well as overall God game fans, with a way to scratch that itch without resorting to black magic to try and get the old versions of that fan favorite to run on our modern PCs and operating systems. It's not impossible, and I will leave a link to a community project in the description of this video, but as that is not the topic of this one, let's move on. What is even more important is that this indie dev wants to modernize the God game experience, even if it does look very similar to Black and White's gameplay right now. And if you take off the pink glasses of nostalgia, you will also remember how finicky the gameplay in those old God games was. Now, since Adhain is being made in Unreal Engine 5 for the last year and a half, you could say it also could have lots of problems because of the engine. But let's cross that bridge when we get to a playable demo or beta. And if you want to see the announcement about that as soon as it's posted, I advise wishlisting and following this future game on its Steam store page I have linked in the description. All of these clips I'm showing you now are from an early build and obviously nowhere near feature complete. But you can already see many parts which made Black and White and similar God games so fun to play. Creatures which you can teach and train, many types of God powers you can use and inflict both good and bad outcomes on the world and its population. The famous hand of God and everything that you can interact in the world with it, like picking up and throwing almost anything from trees to boulders, as each and every one on the map is interactable, and you can even start fires which spread across the land. Dev also told me that while fire spreads across the land, it is affected by wind and rain, and putting it out without rain requires the use of a water miracle. On the topic of miracles, you can choose which miracles go into which altar instead of it being fixed like in the original game. This allows more diversity later on, like miracles being stronger under certain village conditions or areas. Miracle stones could also be locked behind map progression or puzzles for more different tactics in multiplayer. But one thing Adhain won't have is armies. Personally, this was part of Black and White 2 I myself didn't enjoy much, so I was glad when the dev told me he isn't planning on this feature. There might be some miracles, aka spells, which temporarily summon a small army to attack a village, but no armies in the classical strategy sense. Opposing gods is a feature that will be added, but as the dev explained, it requires all other core features to be in to avoid duplicate work and constant refactoring. Naturally, we can't expect the same characters to show up like the evil and good conscience spiritual advisors from Black and White, but I hope the dev manages to put something like them into his game. I loved their banter and conversations and how much alive the world felt because they were part of the game. This is the reason I put them on my channel's banner after all. They are some of my favorite game characters ever. I also asked about the puzzles, which I know some might not have enjoyed in past games, but this one will have them. Unfortunately, none of them were ready to be showcased at the time of making this video, but the dev promised to include them in future clips of his game. And speaking of the future, I want to do a Q&A sort of interview with this indie dev and would love for you to post in the comments questions you might have for him. Posting your wish list of features for the game would probably be cool for him to read, so let your imagination run wild down in the comments. The map size will grow with each mission you go through and get more familiar with the gameplay and its features. Dev explained to me that he is still thinking about that as he must find a good balance between scale and playability. Since you as a god are limited to your influence radius, aka the ring around your village, it can become tedious to operate on the map if the next village is very far away, unless your creature is trained well. Something I can't wait to see more footage of, but the developers shared some extra info about creatures and their training. For example, those already know the difference between friendly, neutral and hostile villagers, buildings or resources. They can even differentiate between young and old villagers, injured and healthy villagers. So what this lets you do is to teach your creature to only eat young hostile villagers which are injured, or something far worse than that. On the other hand, you can train creatures to only collect wood at night or go fishing when it rains. Basically, your power is limited to the areas where people believe in you. When you win over new villages, you expand your influence and have more reach, both figuratively and literally. Your creature is the exception to this rule. Starting out young and inexperienced, it learns by observing you, your villagers, and even other creatures. If you train it well, it can become a true extension of your power, even able to cast miracles and act in areas where you can't. Now on to some more interesting facts about Adhain. It is going to have multiplayer and co-op. You'll be able to play alone of course, but also with up to 3 friends. Besides the planned single-player campaign made up of a chain of missions, the final game will feature 3 additional game modes. Everyone for himself, team and a peaceful mode. Everyone for himself. That part was just too funny. Adhain will also feature controller support, work on PC and Mac devices, and be available on Steam and Epic Games stores to begin with. Personally, I hope to see more biomes in the next trailer or previews, some deserts, volcanic rocks, tropic beaches or snow-covered peaks. Of course, these kinds of games have a lot more which is needed to make them feel good, which is probably why Adhain, for example, didn't find many players, and yet Black and White is still remembered and played 25 years later. If you want to learn about more such games, check out the cards on the screen or links in the description. Feel free to post questions you want me to ask this dev for a future video in the comments below. Thank you for watching and happy gaming!